Hi, I'm Ken Jr. and welcome to Train World TV. Here you'll find the latest and greatest in model trains. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new to our channel, we're glad you're here, and I invite you to click the subscribe button and hit that bell notification so you'll never miss a video. Now, we'd also love to send you exclusive deals and special announcements that you won't find anywhere else. So be sure to sign up for our emails, TW Text, and stay connected with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Now, you can find all the links in the description box below or trainworld.com. And without further ado, enjoy today's video.
Alrighty, and good evening, everyone. Happy Thomas Tuesday. Hope everyone is well on this lovely, lovely May day. We are back yet again for our latest Thomas Tuesday event. It's amazing as to how fast time flies, because I can remember sitting down just last month and thinking that was just a week ago. But as a matter of fact, it was indeed already 5 weeks. And it's scary. As time goes on, time goes faster. But we are super hyped to have the latest action-packed event, nevertheless, and I am here with some incredible people as always, but we are missing the ringleader, Ken Bianco Jr., as he, as a matter of his wife, just delivered the baby. So before we go on to anything in the chat, everyone, please put in the chat congratulations to Ken for a wonderful, successful newborn. And I've been slacking because I actually don't know, Matt, maybe if the baby is male or female as of yet.
It's a girl.
Any ideas? Do you?
Yeah, it's a girl.
Oh, it is a girl. Okay.
It's a girl.
I've been slacking. So already the chat's going crazy. So Ken, if you're watching this is for you, man.
Congratulations, Ken.
Congratulations, Ken. We miss you.
All right, and the chat is going crazy. I think a lot of people are super hyped to see what we have this evening. And so, first and foremost, my colleague Matt C. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Christian. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well. I just got back from Indiana just last Friday there, and it was a long drive back to New York, but well deserved. And it feels good to be back home after a long semester. Although the semester actually felt very fast, looking back on it with hindsight. But it feels good to be in a new setting yet again. I did see a comment from, I think, Dan the Man. He claimed that I was still being kidnapped in my friend Ben's basement, and no, that's not the case. So Dan, if you're watching this, I appreciate the recognition, but just so you know, I am safe and sound back here in New York. So I appreciate that very much. Anyhow, the guest of this evening, Carter, Project Northwestern. A lot of people on Twitter are super hyped with his customs consistently from week to week, always showcasing the latest greatness as far as 3D printing is concerned, DCC is concerned, and he's got a lot of insight to share with us this evening. How are you doing, Carter?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for inviting me as well. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. And the man of the hour, every single event, he never fails to disappoint, Doug Blaine from Bachmann Trains. How are you this evening?
Great. Thank you, Christian. Great to be with you and Matt and Carter. I look forward to seeing what Carter has to show. And I look forward to sharing a few things from Bachmann as well. So great to be here once again.
Awesome. And before we go even further, also, yes, folks, a few of you I did see in the comments say I do have my Train World attire today. I know the past few months I've been slacking in that regard as well, but just so you know, I am back. Matt, you see it's there in the flesh.
Yep, never been slacking.
It's the proof. All right, there's no Photoshop, no green screen, none of that. All right, it's in the flesh. It's there, and I am back with Train World attire. All right, so
I feel underdressed. I
I
don't have
mentioned that.
anything with a logo.
Your hat, you're good.
You got a hat logo, yeah.
You got the hat, yeah, for sure, for sure. But yes, guys, we have tons and tons of awesome stuff planned for this evening, as well as a raffle. So stay tuned for the raffle about the intermission time after Carter's presentation and before the big reveals by Doug. Please stay tuned for that. But without further ado, we are going to transition to Carter. So Carter, please tell us a little about yourself and what first got you into Thomas to begin with.
Well, I probably started with Thomas as far back as I can remember. I couldn't tell you how old I was, what the first episode I watched was, what the first season was. I honestly could not tell you. But I first got into Thomas really modeling when I was around maybe 8 years old. For Christmas, I got the Bachmann Thomas starter set. But that wasn't my first exposure to model trains. My very first model train was back when I was 4 years old, and I got the Lionel Polar Express for Christmas. But then a few years later, I got the Bachmann Thomas set. I got, of course, the starter set with Annie and Clarabelle, along with Henry, Gordon, Percy, and James. Edward got the short end of the stick. I don't even know if he was out by that time. But those were my very first models. I still have them to this day. But it wasn't until a few years when I really started to get into model railroading. I started building the layout and everything. And while we were cleaning out the attic one day, I found an old case that had all my original Bachmann stuff inside. And they were a little beat up. Like Thomas, some of his lining was worn down. Gordon was missing wheels. Henry was missing valve gear. So I took them all out, gave them a good clean, replaced motors, replaced all the parts. I went on a huge shopping spree on the Bachmann parts store that night just to get everything I needed. But I got them back up and running, and I saw on Twitter people were doing customizations and everything like that. So I started working with those, adding little modifications here and there. And then one year for Christmas, my grandfather gave me his 3D printer. And then that's pretty much how I got more into it, making my own models. So I really enjoyed it.
That's amazing. And I remember speaking with you. You also mentioned that you were studying in college electronics, right? So there's definitely a
Yes, sir.
correlation with a lot of the modeling aspects and hobbies that you participate in, as well as what you're studying in school, which is really awesome. Was there any correlation there as far as connecting the two together? Like, were you first inspired through the electronics and model trains to then study that further in upper division school?
Oh, absolutely. The very first model I had worked on, it really repaired, was my old Bachmann Henry from when I was a kid. The motor and both the printed circuit board were shot, so that was the first time I'd ever soldered. It was the first time I had ever really done anything electrical, and it was kind of like a clicking moment for me. I was like, I really want to do more of this, so I started getting more into it. I worked with DCC a little bit, repaired even more models, and eventually I was like, I want to do this as a career. So that's what I'm studying now currently.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And what would you say is maybe one or two of the biggest reasons as to why, after all these years now as a young adult, you have still been fascinated by the anthropomorphic blue engine we all know?
I remember as a kid just always being just so mesmerized by how realistic and how the sets looked, because the older you get, the more you start to appreciate it, because especially as a modeler, you start to learn, okay, this is how they did it, why they did it, and you really get a sense of how difficult it was at times for these crew members to create these models. Like looking at the HM stuff, it didn't just take time. You really start to understand how difficult this really was. So being able to put yourself in the shoes is really, really.
Fantastic. And just real quick, am I the only one who's dealing with a little bit of audio issues just in the past few seconds?
Yeah,
No,
Carter, I think your
audio
mic came out
issue.
a little bit.
All right, let me see if I can fix that.
Oh, there it goes.
It's back. It's back.
Is
Okay,
it good?
good.
Okay,
You're good.
all right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just me there, but we're good now. Okay,
All right,
that's
good deal.
amazing. It's amazing. So, and then obviously keeping into the modeling, are you primarily an HO modeler? Do you say that you model in different scales going into N and gauge 1? What would you say is your primary expertise before we even get into all the customs to showcase?
Yeah, my primary scale is currently HO00, but I have been, kind of branching off into more scales. Like I started off with gauge 1 a little bit. I started with the N scale a little bit too. I received the starter set along with James and Percy this past Christmas, so I've been getting into those a little bit as well. I definitely plan on getting a little more into N scale and kind of that size, but primarily it is HO scale.
Fantastic. All right. Well, with that said, shall we get into some of the customs?
Absolutely. So I guess I'll go ahead and start off, kind of keep with the trend. But of course, start off with number one, which is, of course, Thomas. So this is my latest Thomas. It's not the first Thomas I've ever done. This is the second one. But this one is a lot more accurate than my older one. Of course, he uses a 3D printed shell, which is designed by my buddy Noah, also known as the LBSC Thomas. And he did a really good job getting prop measurements and counting them up and then scaling them down properly to a Joe scale. And then the chassis, of course, is a Bachmann chassis with some added detail. The chassis block down here is extended a little bit. Also added a little bearing detail here. It doesn't do anything. It's not an actual bearing, but it does help sell kind of like the Markland look that the original models had. And then one of the more recent changes that I did was the side rods. And these side rods are completely custom. Basically, how they're done is that they're 3D printed in brass. One of my buddies, Green, I believe he was on the stream last week. I believe he designed these up. So I had them brass printed, and then just the other night, I nickel plated them to complete the look. And it really adds a lot with the grooves and everything. And then the wheels are Don Douglas wheels. They're not Thomas wheels, but they are Don Douglas ones, which do make it a little more accurate to the Markland chassis that Thomas had. But the face is actually really interesting because one of the things that we've been able to do now is now 3D scanning. And so this is a 3D scan of a face sculpt that was done by my buddy Covey, also known as Thomas Modeler on Twitter. But he sculpted the face and then 3D scanned it, and then I printed it out. So we've been able to get a lot more accurate faces this way. But for now, here is Thomas.
Fantastic. And I can definitely see it's mainly a season 1 inspiration, this model.
Yes, it is mostly season 1 with a little bit of season 2 mixed in there as well. But overall, yes, he is based off the first season.
Nice, nice. Very cool.
How common is the brass 3D printing? I haven't heard too much about that.
It's been getting a lot more popular. Normally, what a lot of people will do is the whistles, like his whistles here are brass 3D printed. But it is becoming a lot more popular over the years. And it's really great to see because just the accurate metal parts really does add a lot to the model.
Very nice.
Anyways, there is Thomas. But of course, one of the things that I do love about him is that he is DCC sound equipped, along with a capacitor, which allows him to keep running on dirty track and everything. So he is fully sound equipped. I believe we'll get into that a little bit later, but for now, that is Thomas.
And Carter, before we go on, someone just stated in the chat, Carter, you should throw it.
I'm not going to do that. Thanks, though.
We don't do that, folks. We don't do that. These are model trains, not $10 toys. So we don't do that. That's all I'm going to say.
And the next one here is, of course, Percy. Just like Thomas, he is a 3D print designed by the LBSC Thomas. And just like Thomas, he also has custom rods along with a custom cross end. Those are brass printed as well. But one of the more interesting things about this Percy is that the chassis is mostly 3D printed. The wheels are, of course, Bachmann since they need to be metal in order to run. But the chassis block itself is 3D printed, and this is mostly so I can fit the speaker and DCC decoder along with the Keep Alive to this model since the gearbox is a little bit too large to fit everything in. So I did have to settle for a printed chassis. But just like Thomas, he does feature brass whistles, and one of the things that he also has is a brass dome. And I just had it polished up, so it's nice and shiny. But was the dome actually brass in the first season? No, it wasn't. But it really does add a lot of fun detail to the model. And then Percy's face is also a 3D printed face. And this is a scan of one of the original face molds. So this is pretty much the exact shape of Percy's original face from the show. So we've been able to get a lot more accurate faces done with the technology of 3D scanning. And it really does add a lot to the model. But just like Thomas, of course, he is also DCC sound equipped.
Awesome. And Dan the 25 man asks who painted the faces, eyebrows, eyes, and all. Was it all done by you, or did you commission someone else?
Yes, I did do the faces. The models are sprayed in a primer and then with a kind of grayish color, as close as I could get kind of to the first season. The eyebrows are done with a ink pen. I believe it's 0.05 millimeters for that ballpoint pen. And then the eyes are BB pellets for smaller engines like Thomas and Percy. They're 6 millimeters, and then the pupils are done with glossy cut black vinyl.
Nice.
So yeah, there is Percy.
Awesome.
So next, I guess we will move on to one of the more larger engines here, which is James. So James is probably one of my favorites just because of his larger size. And again, of course, catted up by my buddy, the LBC Thomas. He recently redid a lot of the files to be more accurate and properly scaled. And one of the more recent ones that he did was James. And he just knocked it out of the park for sure. But of course, he does use a Bachmann chassis with some little modifications, such as different wheels. These are the Donald Douglas ones, and then a little bit of bearing details there as well. And of course, one differences with James are his handrails. Of course, these are done with cow scale brass stanchions, and then with some wire bent into place. And then he also features his brass details, including the whistle and safety valve, and then the dome, which is also brass as well. And again, that really adds a lot of fun detail to it. But just like Percy, his face is also a 3D scan of one of the original prop molds. So we've been able to get a lot more accurate with those faces here. And then I'll hold up his tender here so you can kind of see the full model. But he also features sound as well. He just needs to add a power pack in him so he can run a little bit longer. But yeah, that's James.
You mentioned polishing the dome for, I think, Percy. How often is polishing required for the 3D printed brass? And can you coat it with like a lac or something to keep it nice and bright, or is that not preferred?
That's a good question. That's something I haven't actually tried, but I would like to try it out just to see if it does work. But it was the first time I had polished Percy's dome since I got it, which was about a year ago. So don't have to polish it too often, just a little bit of Brasso, which you can get really at any hardware store, and just kind of rub it on, and then boom, you're done. So polishing isn't really that big of a deal. You don't really have to do it too often, thankfully. But once it is polished, it really does help with the look.
Yeah, it's definitely a good pop on the locomotive for detailing.
For sure. And then one thing Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. On the separate subject there, I meant to ask this earlier, but what DCC system do you use? Do you use NCE, Digitrax, or?
The personal system that I use for my layout is NCE PowerCap. I really like NCE. It's a lot easier to program, I found. But the decoders themselves are ESU lock sound. And this is because ESU allows you to do really custom sounds, really any audio file that you want. And because of that, I've been able to use sounds ripped directly from the show. So I've been able to go through different episodes, rip the sounds out, clean them up, make them nice and crisp for those smaller speakers, and then program it into the model. So like James has his iconic whistle, voice lines, things like that. And of course, running them at the club, kids absolutely love the engines because they'll say hi to the model and then the model will say hi right back. So it's really a joy to see people interact with these models.
Nice.
And then the next one, this is my most recent model, and it's one I haven't really shown off yet. Grab him here, but it is Gordon. So Gordon I have yet to show off, but he is my newest one. Of course, featuring his iconic angry face there, which is made by a Twitter user. I believe the name is Gooey. I don't really remember the full name, but he did an excellent job designing his face. He let me purchase it a few months ago, and it really adds to the look of the model with that iconic angry look that Gordon has. But Gordon was a bit of a difficult one, especially with his chassis. Of course, the main thing with the Bachmann models is that the side rods have to be a little bit thick in order for young kids to be able to play with them, without it being a choking hazard and everything. So in order to make them a bit thinner and more accurate to the show, the valve gear itself comes from a Rivarossi locomotive. I believe it's the Blue Goose. Don't quote me on that, but I just happened to find them at a parts bin, but I do believe it comes from the Rivarossi Blue Goose. And then the main rods themselves are Donald Douglas rods that were cut down and then soldered back together. And because of that, he doesn't run the absolute best. He's not super smooth, but I am going to fix that with the brass rods, just like I did with Thomas and Percy. So he will run a lot smoother with those. And then the front bogey is a Spencer one that was taken from a Bachmann Spencer, which of course is a little bit shorter than the stock standard one, which is more accurate to Gordon's look. And then he also does feature DCC sound as well, but he is kind of due for a makeover since he's not scaled the most accurately. But overall, he's still a really nice model. I did really enjoy making him. But yeah, there's Gordon. I will grab his tender here just so you can see the full model here.
How did you do the curves on the tender?
So all of my lining is done with custom cut vinyl. My uncle actually does these. He's a graphic designer. And so when I started making custom models, I asked him if he'd be willing to create these vinyl stickers that I could use for the models. So of course he's been able to do that, and he did a tremendous job getting the measurements just right. So really all I have to do is just peel them off the sheet and then stick them on. So the curves for the splashers and everything like that are already there. I'm not having to bend any transfers or anything. So it really does make things a lot easier, especially for me since I don't have the steadiest hand. So it really does help a lot getting that finalized lining.
I'd say you're very fortunate in family support with your grandfather providing a 3D printer, your uncle providing some vinyl graphics. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've all been very supportive, which is great to see.
Nice.
And then moving on from kind of the more printed models, got some kind of more standard Bachmann models. So here is the LBSC Thomas. This was one that I picked up about a year ago. I was out at a train store with a couple friends, and I saw him in the gift shop, and I just knew I had to pick him up because he was one that I'd kind of been wanting for a while. So I picked him up, and then I took him home, and I just immediately started customizing him. And of course, one of the main things is that he does have a different face, which is more based off of the CGI model. I wanted to have a more CGI style Thomas, and I decided that the LBC Thomas would be perfect for that. But one of the main things that was done proportionally was the buffer beam, which had to be cut down just a little bit. And to do that, I used a Dremel piece in order to get that a little bit shortened. And then some details were also changed slightly. I added on new 3D printed buffers along with a new lamp, and then the lamp irons, which are made of metal. And then he also has some brass whistles there as well, which also really adds to the look. And then I gave him a matte clear coat, really to help seal in that lining and everything, just so that, few years down the road, it doesn't start peeling away. So it'll help protect that a little bit. And then the rods are new rods as well. They're not metal, they're not brass, but they are 3D printed in resin. And they're mostly here just for looks, but I will replace them with proper metal ones just to ensure that he is the smoothest runner. But I had a really fun time kind of breaking away from the usual stuff and just doing a more easier model. So that's the LBC Thomas. And people ask me, what's the best way to get started? And I say, just take a model like this and add little adjustments, little detail adjustments here and there, really add to the look and serve as a great introductory. So there's LBC Thomas.
I like that advice. Start small and work up.
Absolutely. Don't go crazy right out of the gate. Start small and then work your way up. Then lastly, of course, this is a pretty new model, but it is Ryan. So I got this guy on pre-order from Train World, of course. And when he arrived, I immediately got started on customizing him a little bit. So I gave him matte coat again to help seal in all those decals and lining and everything to ensure, a few years down the road it stays on. But one of the new things that I added, of course, was functioning couplings, and this was so it could be compatible with my other engines and rolling stock. Brand new brake pipe as well, along with lamp irons. The lamp, I believe, is stock. I don't think it's a printed one, but I do believe it is the stock standard lamp that comes with the model. One thing I also added was glazed front windows, which is basically just a little sheet of plastic and then matte coated to kind of give it a bit of that glazed look. And it really does help with that detail just a little bit, just to have those windows glazed in there. And then one of the final things that I did was add in a more realer coal load, which of course is real coal, and it really does add to a little more fun on the model. But yeah, there's Ryan, a very simple one, but still really enjoy having him all the same.
Very effective.
Definitely.
I'm always a big fan of window glazing on models. It really adds a nice little level of detail to it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then one that I would kind of like to break away from a little bit here. It's not really Thomas related, but it is one that people have been asking to see more of, and that is the Polar Express. So this is one of my more recent models. I completed it this past Christmas, but a lot of people have been asking to see more of it. So here it is. One thing that's really great about this model is that you can use the Bachmann Berkshire for this. For these mods, a lot of people ask, what did you use? What's a good engine to use? And it's definitely the Bachmann Berkshire. It makes things a lot easier, especially since you can get the unlettered and unpainted one, which makes it a lot easier to add decals. And then the smoke box is also removable along with the pilot, so you can just take those off and then replace them. But the ones on my model are 3D printed, just painted black and then stuck on. And then also added on a new brass whistle, swingable bell there, so it actually swivels. And then the model also does feature DCC sound ripped directly from the movie to give it a little more authenticity and playability. But this is definitely one of my favorite models, especially since, it's not usually something that I do, something more American. But I'll grab the tender here, see if I can fit her completely in frame. It's a little difficult. Yeah, there's the Polar Express. And Doug, if y'all ever release the North Pole Express coaches separately, I'm probably going to have to get a couple of those. So if you ever release those, I'll be putting in a couple pre-orders.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's about all the customs I have for tonight. But one of the last things that I do have, when Christian had reached out to me about doing the stream, I kind of thought of what would be a good, fun kind of reveal. And so I thought I'd try something I've never tried before, which is figures. So first one here that we have is, of course, the only Ken Jr., who is not here with us tonight, but we do have him, I guess, in spirit here. Not only do we have Ken, but we also have Christian. Not only do we have Christian, but we also have the only Doug. So we have the whole trio here. And Matt, I believe you already have a figure of yourself. So
I do.
I thought we'd just make the rest of them and have the whole trio here.
Can you bring him a little closer to the camera?
Yeah, for sure.
That's hysterical. That's awesome.
A little crude, but of course the prop ones were a little crude as well. And I just noticed I forgot to add Ken's beard, so that's something I'm going to have to go in and fix. But if you guys want your figures, reach out to me, and maybe we can get these sent out for you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's lovely.
Really appreciate it. That very thoughtful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I guess that's about everything I have so far.
Fantastic.
Great job all the way through.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And before we go on to our raffle, we do have a whole Google doc also of models running
absolutely.
and pictures. So let's definitely go through some of that stuff before we transition on, so we can see some of the stuff in action. Matt, I think you're in control of this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think you have to make it a bit bigger, though. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's check out.
So yeah, there's Percy there. Just a short little run from him. I believe this might be the same video. Yeah.
Watch again. It's fine.
But that was his very first run with his new decoder, so I'm glad it ended up going well.
did you use for the mountain in the background there?
This is a club layout, so I couldn't really tell you for sure, but I do believe it's mostly paper mache.
Okay, cool.
And then here's one of Polar Express as well. She does have a smoke unit, which really helps with the model. And then people have asked what coaches I use. These are just the stock standard Lionel Polar Express coaches.
Who's on top there? Is that Tom Hanks?
Yeah, one of the Tom Hanks characters, yeah.
Excellent.
And then this one was taken around Christmas time during the museum's Polar Express event. So there we got Thomas with a little Christmas train. Another one from that night, Thomas and Polar Express meeting here.
Like I'm telling you, if you stole those hats separately, they're gonna go crazy.
I didn't know there was a call for them until just now.
Oh man.
Hello, I'm Thomas, and I'm the #1 blue engine. #1 engine coming through.
Yeah,
If
there's
that doesn't
Thomas
put a
right there.
smile on your face, what will?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Percy. I love delivering the mail.
That's great.
And then this one here is, of course, James.
Hello, I'm James, the #5 red engine.
James personally is my favorite theme. I really like that one.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really nice one.
That's a great one.
And then here's Gordon. This is my most recent DCC install.
I'm Gordon, and I'm the number 4 blue engine. Express study
How hard is it to pull the sound from the show and clean it up and make it presentable for DCC again?
It's a good question. It really depends on which sound it is. What's nice about the classic seasons is that they've been able to had the film restored, so that kind of gets a lot of the work done for me. But really, what I'll do is make sure kind of like clean it up, make sure there's no crackling or anything like that, and everything is crisp and clear, because it does sound different coming from a speaker that small compared to something like your headphones. So sometimes I'll have to upload a sound, so like, oh, this needs a lot more cleaning up, and then I'll put it back into the computer, clean it up a little bit more, put it back into the model, and then it'll sound a lot nicer. But it does take a good few hours to get everything cleaned up, sounding good, and then also programmed into the model.
Well, the work you put in pays off because they sound awesome.
Thank you very much. But anyways, that image there is of Thomas. This was just a few weeks ago out at the club. I brought him out there. He had just gotten a DCC upgrade with the Keep Alive, which lets him run a little bit longer on things like dirty tracks, switches, and everything like that. With his small wheelbase is definitely pretty important if you're doing DCC with models these small. So he ran great that day. This was taken just after Percy was completed. So take him out to the club for the first time, give him a good test run. So here he is, just shunting a little cream tanker there.
It looks like he has a mustache.
He does, yeah, he does. And then this was taken right after Gordon was completed. I went out to the club, gave him a good test run as well. He did struggle a little bit, so he is going to have some upgrades, especially in his running gear. But still really enjoy bringing him out and getting some shots with him. And then this was the night Gordon was completed. Took this right after. I gave him his gloss clear coat. So pretty much a fresh model in that image. And then here's what the inside of an engine like Thomas looks like. So of course you can kind of see the new rods and everything like that. But the gearbox itself is a 3D print by Crafty Nerd. He designed it. And the reason why I settled for a 3D print gearbox is, of course, mostly so that I can fit everything in a nice, compact spot. So like the decoder you can see there on top, the capacitor, which is the little power pack there, is there in front, and then the speaker is there in the back. So reducing space as much as possible, and then adding in weights to make sure he runs as smoothly as possible.
This is beautifully compact. It's like all right in one spot. It's perfect.
I'm all about organization, so I had to get it done properly. And then here is my model of Gauge 1 Thomas with the N-Scale Thomas. I just got the N-Scale Thomas, and I wanted to see how they compare to models. So there's N-Scale Thomas with the Gauge 1 model, and you can really see the difference between the scale that they use for the show compared to something like N-Scale. And then here is my Gauge 1 model, Thomas and Gordon. Thomas was made by my buddy Tank Engine John, who does a tremendous job with Gauge 1 models. So I commissioned that from him. And then the Gordon is one that I completely did myself. It was my very first time ever doing anything Gauge 1, which if you want to do Gauge 1, do not start off with Gordon. That was the worst mistake. Try out something smaller. But for my first model, I am pretty pleased with them. So there the two are together. And then here is a closer look at Ryan. This was taken after I finished customizing him. I took him out to the club for a good running. And, he did really nice mechanism. I did, yes. I did paint up the rivets to be a little more accurate to the show. So for that, I just used a little bit of black acrylic and a small brush. And then here's Gordon being tested with his new decoder on the programming track. Not really a fan of it, but he did pretty all right programming him in. Then here's the LBSC Thomas with Percy. Of course, not the biggest fan of the green look, but still really enjoy having these two green guys together. And then here's Thomas with an alternate face. This one is also a 3D scan of one of the original face molds printed down to HO scale. And then here's kind of what a finished model looks like compared to a newer model. So the Thomas here on the right is currently a work in progress. I plan on making him based after the brass model, how Thomas looked kind of in the later years of the model series. But you can kind of see the difference between how a model looks complete and then how it looks pretty much fresh off of the 3D printer. Another one of James. Of course, you can see that face scan there, which really helps a lot with that added detail. And then this was taken during the solar eclipse. So obviously not very safe with the glasses there, but it was a lot of fun taking the model out during the eclipse there. This one's just of a truck, got off the rails a little bit, so it's just kind of just hanging out. And then this one is of Toby, one I didn't show up yet here on the stream, but Toby was a really fun one to do. It turns out to be a pretty fun one if you're starting off with a model for the very first time, since he's just, a square, a brown box. So if you want to start off with modeling, he's a pretty good one to start off with. Then here's Thomas and Percy, and that little board that you see there is my decoder tester. So this was getting their decoders tested and everything before getting them installed into the locomotive. It's always important to test your decoders separately before putting them into the engine, so that way you're not soldering in the wires and then realize, oh, this decoder doesn't work, and then you got to take it all out and do it all over again. So always test your decoders before putting them in the engine.
Where does that test board come from?
This is one from ESU Lock Sound. Of course, they make the programmer that I use along with the decoder tester there. But I do believe that their tester works with any brand of DCC decoder. Don't quote me on that, though. But it is really nice for testing out all the functionality in the motor and speaker and everything like that. And then here's Percy with a stock standard Bachmann Percy. I had gotten a Bachmann Percy to do up as a commission there, so I decided to get my Percy and the Bachmann one there together for a nice little picture there on the modeling desk. And then here's Diesel. Diesel's also a 3D print as well, but he does use the Bachmann chassis as always. But here's him just kind of sticking around the yard, and this was after I'd completed him a day or two after, so nice test at the club with him. And then here's another scale difference here. Gauge 1 Gordon compared to 00 Gordon or HO Gordon. You can really see the difference here between the scale that I mostly model compared to the scale that they used on the show. It's staggering how much bigger the Gauge 1 models truly are. And then here's Edward. This is kind of one of my older models. This is the first model of Edward I've done, so he is in definite need of a redo, repaint, and maybe even a reprint as well. But this was also after he was completed. And then here's Henry. I am in the process of redoing my Henry. So this is kind of my older one here. But he is a modified Bachmann. His shell is not a 3D print. But mostly the things that he had done to him was shortening him just a little bit to better match the prop, and then the tender height was raised just a little bit as well, and of course a full-on repaint. And then here are Thomas, James, and Percy on the desk. James was getting near completion. He had just had his brass fittings and handrails put in, and then Thomas and Percy were pretty much done by this point. So we're just pretty much doing these three at the same time. And then here's a closer look at the LBSC Thomas, and this was right after he was completed as well. And I really like the CGI face on it. Really adds a lot of character. And then here's Percy with a little bit of a smug look on his face. And I believe this was taken just a few weeks ago. Brought him out to the club for a nice run. And then here's James. We were having an American operations session, which I was not aware of. So it was a little bit interesting having him go around with all the American engines, but it was definitely a fun sight for sure.
It looks like that is the end of the drive.
Fantastic. And all right, we will transition back to this mode. Carter, thank you so much. Before we go on, I was looking closely at the comments as you were presenting. Can we please see the Gauge 1 models live that are right behind you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So I guess we'll start off here with Thomas. Again, this was a model that was done at my friend Tank Engine John. But his face is a actual cast of one of the original face molds. Thomas Tank Merch, which I'm sure the fandom is pretty familiar with for owning a lot of the props. Lewis has been able to do a lot of the casting of some of the original molds. So this is kind of really nice casting of one of Thomas's original molds. And this is based off the brass Thomas model, not the plastic one that was used in the earlier seasons. So this one is kind of mostly based off the 8th and 9th seasons. But he does need a bit more work to him. He is going to get a nice repaint to be a little more accurate in his colors. And his chassis is static, so if I try to move the wheels here, they're not going to do anything. So he is due for a proper chassis for sure. But for now, he is just a static model. And even just having a static Gauge 1 model is really, really neat, just because you really get a feeling of like how they handle these models, the size of them, and really just how they built them. So there's Thomas. He's definitely in need of an upgrade, but that's him for now. And then the next one, show off here, if I can pick him up, that is, because he is quite heavy, is Gordon. Let's see if I can get him here. But he is a pretty beefy guy. He does weigh quite a few pounds, and it is because his chassis is fully metal. It is from a Marklin engine, of course, just like the show. He uses a BR78, so my model also uses a BR78. So not only having a chassis of pretty much the same that they use, it really gives you an idea of how heavy these models were. He's just an absolute beast. But he was made with laser cut acrylic. The show used acrylic plastic to make the original props, so that's what I did for this model here. But he was all glued together, sanded down, all the seams were filled in, and then painted up. But he is in need of a repaint. I recently took him to Florida this past January for a show, and during the traveling process, he did get a little bit damaged. He is showing some cracking in his running board, so that needs to be fixed and everything. He also needs an iMech upgrade. He does have a smoke mechanism in there as well. So as he puffs, he does make chuffing sounds, or not chuffing sounds, but chuffing smoke. But yeah, there's Gordon for now.
And 2 questions. First and foremost,
Sure.
Are you sure that was your first Gauge 1 model you've ever done?
Yes, this is the first one I have ever done.
That's incredible.
Thank you,
Incredible.
thank you.
Wow.
But again, I gotta say, do not start off with Gordon as your first one. Start off small.
And then the second question is,
work out
does
in the
your
long
Gordon model still smell like Doritos?
So this is a funny story. When I took him to Florida, we were running him on a club layout. One of the clubs displaying there graciously offered us to run our models. And so we ran Gordon. However, a bit of an issue was that too much current was being applied to his smoke unit. So it caused it to melt. Because of that, the plastic had, of course, burning smell, and one of my buddies said he kind of smells like Doritos a little bit. So um, that's where that joke stems from. But that has been fixed since then. So thankfully, he doesn't really have that smell anymore. But that was quite unfortunate having all that plastic melt inside of him. Thankfully, it didn't damage the body at all, just the smoke unit. But it was definitely a very funny situation for sure.
And a smoke unit, a burnt out motor, and Doritos. I
Yeah,
don't think I see the correlation there, but
yeah, for sure.
interesting way to put it, I suppose.
I don't think you should make like a tiny little Doritos bag to go on his little buffer beam.
That'd be a good idea. I'll have to keep that in mind. But the next one here, this is my latest model. I haven't really shown him yet at all. But this is James. I can grab him here. But he is my most recent model. His face is also a cast of one of the original face molds as well, a resin cast. In fact, if I pull off the face here, you can kind of see the different cuts that the show crew used to get everything, dremeled out for the eye plate. So all those hand cuts there. But James, just like Gordon, uses an authentic Markland chassis, being the BR-55, which was used for James, Edward, Thomas, and a few other characters. But this one, the shell was originally owned by my friend Noah, the LBC Thomas. And when I saw that he was selling his James shell, I decided to buy it. I sanded it down, gave it a good cleanup, repainted him to be a little more accurate to the later hit era seasons. And then just like my 00 model, or my HO model, his dome is also brass. I haven't lit it down yet, so I don't want it to fall off, so I'll just stick it out to the side for now. But there's James, and then I will also grab his tender here as well, so you can kind of see the full model. But he is still a work in progress. Goal is to have him completed by the end of this month. But here's how he is so far.
And how long did it take you? There's a question in the chat about that. As far as where you've gotten up to with the Gauge 1 James.
So James, it's a very good question. I believe the chassis I'd gotten this past December, I had won it at an auction house, funnily enough, and one of my friends decided to pick it up. He shipped it off to me, and that's when I got the chassis. But I didn't really get going on him until around Easter. On Easter Sunday, went over to my grandparents, asked my grandfather if I could use his bandsaw. He said yes, of course. So I cut up the chassis to fit James's body. And then I really started getting going on the body itself, repainted it. So far, I've been at it since around March. Gordon, on the other hand, he took about a good year or so. And I could do him a lot quicker, of course, but of course, college, work, gets in the way of things. But it does take a good few months to get these guys fully completed.
Beautiful.
I'll just set him down here.
The work is, of course, great, but also I just wanted to, what a privilege to be able to get molds from the original props from the TV show. Well, just a great thing to have for your models as well. And you put everything to great use. They look fantastic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
In the future, if you ever have kids or you have a nephew or a niece and they come over and they're exposed to the earlier seasons of the show, they're like, did you steal the props? Did you somehow buy the props? They're accurate,
Right.
And, even in HO with the Bachmann models, I can get away with that a little bit with some folks in my family, who are on the younger side. But then later on, they learn, these are actually model trains you can actually purchase. But they don't know that from a young age.
Oh yeah, I definitely get that a lot when I bring them out to the club for public train shows. Like, are these the show used props? It's like, no, but it is a nice compliment that people thinking they are from the show. So
definitely. Awesome. Well, Carter, thank you so much for showcasing all of your HO models, the Gauge 1 models, and also the expertise on DCC, because that's becoming a wider and wider or more popular phenomenon across the board in model railroading. So for even with Thomas, there's so much possibilities, which reminds me, Doug, how are Thomas and Percy doing in HO with the DCC?
They are being worked on. No promises, but we are making progress.
Awesome. But thank you so much, Carter, for showcasing the models. And,
thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Beautiful job.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, with that, should we transition to our raffle, Matt?
I think we should.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so for those of you folks who are ready, we will be raffling an HO. Sorry, let me just change the settings here so that you can see all of those.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. We are raffling an HO scale soda fuel tanker, all right? Now, Matt, I know I lied. I said that we were only going to have one question, but, you know, I think that's a little too easy. I came up with 2 other questions during the course of the past hour. So
All right.
we're going to still have 3 questions. They're not going to be crazy questions, but they're going to be 3 questions nevertheless. All right, folks. So get ready for this 3-parter. Get your fingers close to the keypads. As for those of you who know, usually first come, first serve. Not always, but usually. So these are the 3 questions. All right. Firstly, what season did this fuel tanker first appear in? That's question number 1. And then the second question is, what episode did Percy pull the fuel tanker in independently from season 5? And lastly, in that same episode, where did he deliver the fuel tanker along with everything else he had to carry? Those are the 3 questions.
Wow, you're really giving it to them.
Yeah, and they're off.
Good. And remember, folks, you have to put all 3 in the same post. If you have them all separated, it's going to make things a little more challenging. So if you could just put them all into one comment, that'd be great. That way I'll see it. We'll be all set to go. Good. I'm already seeing a few correct answers for all 3.
And you're right. That really was a very easy question.
Yeah. A lot of folks are getting it. Yeah. Awesome. So once again, this is the HO scale soda fuel tanker. The 3 questions for those of you who missed: what season did it first appear in? What episode from season 5 did Percy pull it independently? And lastly, in that same episode, where did he deliver the fuel tanker along with everything else he was carrying?
I think you're tough, Christian. Those are the combination. I think that's tough. But if people are getting it, fantastic. The fandom knows.
Yes. I think this one was a little too easy, honestly.
Oh.
I'm genuinely
I don't know.
shocked,
I don't know
actually.
the answer, so
I didn't know the answer.
Oh, really?
No, that was
It's a good one. All right.
that was a good one.
very good one.
Awesome. You know, we got to keep the stakes up. You know, bring things to the next level across the board. We're talking about DCC. We're talking about customization, and so we got to make sure our historical knowledge of the Thomas Show is on par with all that advanced modeling too.
And the next question is going to be like the dates that they were actually filming the episodes in real life.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, we did ask about dates. I think one of the streams I asked like when a book was published, and then another one I asked when did this episode air? You know, from season 8 or excuse me, not season 8, season 5. I think it was James in the Trouble with Trees. So keeping things up high across the board. Like I said, a lot of correct answers. Sorry, what was that, Matt?
Sorry. I said the next question is going to be like a day, time, and like hour that they filmed a specific shot for a specific episode.
We're going to go up as far as we can, up to the stratosphere. All right. But yes, folks, keep an eye on your Twitters and your Instagrams, or whatever way we can contact you. That's usually how we contact you privately, just to determine who won the raffle. But thank you to everyone who participated in, and stay tuned to see who won. All right. But with that said, I think we are ready for the big Bachmann reveals of May 2024. So without further ado, pass it on to Doug Blaine.
Sounds good. Thank you much. I am ready. Before we get to the big reveal, I do have a couple updates on a few items. And I know we showed Bo last time, but we have a video to share this time as well. So I'm just going to show you Bo in the package, which you've already seen. But I think, Matt, you can show a video, right?
Yeah, that'll be me, actually.
That's Christian? Okay. And also, just a delivery update is he is expected in mid to late June. So he is on the water to us now.
Awesome.
All right. So this is just a short video clip to show him in motion. And he's...
There we go.
There we go, yeah. So there's no sound on these, but just like I said, just to show them in motion. As we talked about before, Bo does not have moving eyes as typical for almost all of our HO scale locomotives, and but it does have an operating headlight, so that's a cool feature. And a good excuse to get some American prototype on your railroad, on your Thomas layout. So as Carter was saying, if you need to take a Thomas product to a club layout that's having an American operating day, you got it now, or we'll have it soon.
Awesome. And Doug, I was talking to Ken in the past few months, and I think that Bo is, believe it or not, the third most popular pre-order out of all the new upcoming Bachmann Thomas products, with N-Skill Gordon still in the lead, and I think the DCC Thomas is number 2, but Bo is apparently number 3. Matt,
That's awesome.
Can you confirm that? Or
I couldn't say anything on that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, lots of pre-orders I saw on Bo, which was
Cool to hear. Nice.
Awesome. We'll go through the clip one more time just because why not? And it's mesmerizing.
Why not? Exactly. While you're doing that, I'm going to get a few other things set up here.
Awesome.
Very smooth runner.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right, so there's Bo, coming soon by the end of June. All right, now these I also showed before. These were our narrow gauge slate wagons, and I showed you 3 different colors but didn't have the 4th. So I'm going to show you the 4th one this time. This is our gray slate wagon number 136. That's a new road number. This is a new oxide red or brown slate wagon. And then we have the darker brown one here. These are all obviously without wheels, they're just paint samples. This one is showing up a little dark, but it actually, in real life, it's a little bit lighter than is what is actually showing up on the camera. And then this is the color I did not have last time. This is a tan color. So that's actually looking a little bit lighter on camera than it is in real life. So I just wanted to show you the 4 slate wagons. So I don't have any delivery on that yet, but won't be too long on those. All right. Also for delivery updates for N-Scale Emily, everything N-Scale Emily, the locomotive, Emily's coach, Emily's brake coach, and the N-Scale complete ready to run set. All those are expected to arrive in September. So now when I say these things, please understand things may change. This is as planned right now. So keep your fingers crossed that everything comes in on schedule. Also, I showed you previously this is Sir Topham Hatt's car, but I don't think I showed him with the chassis and wheels. Is that so?
Yeah,
anyway. All right, so we got some chassis and wheels to show you there. Just a little bit of an update on that. Trying not to flash it out too much. So it just shows you what it looks like with the wheels. There we go. All right, and then another delivery update. N-Scale Gordon, we expect in October. So he's come along well, and as I said, don't hold me to it. There may be some changes, but that's as of now. So with that, I think we are ready for the big reveal for Rebecca. So most people know, fandom probably knows it's based on the Battle of Britain class locomotive. It's a 462 built between about 1945 and 1950 by the Southern Railway. And here we go. A little bit of a drum roll. I think I hear it. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start with the tender. So I really like the paint job on this.
That is very crisp. Wow.
It's dramatic. You know, very dramatic coloring. I think very sharp.
How difficult was it to get the colors and everything so sharp?
Well, we had a paint sample before, but we weren't happy with the yellow color, so we waited to get another paint sample before I showed it off. We could have showed this actually a couple months ago, but it took that long to get the new paint sample in. So, but is it difficult? It's just, it's just time and making sure you get it right.
Well worth the wait for sure.
Why,
Is that a
thank
coal
you.
spout at the front? In the
What's
cab?
that?
Is that a coal spout at the front?
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, that's nice.
That's nice detailing.
Yeah. All right, so there's the tender. And now we'll get the star of the show here. So here she is. Let's see if I got to pull her back a little bit. All right. Swing her around into view. So I'll bring the tender up in a little bit too. So, all right, so we got the brake rigging underneath.
Ooh, sorry. Probably the comments are covering you, dog. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So then, and we do have glazing in the cab windows. I don't know if you can see that, but there is glazing in there. Open cab to the back. It's difficult to get any light in there, but it's not a detailed cab interior. There's a little bit of basic detailing in there, but available for extra detailing if anyone wants to add it. And there she is again. So I'm going to try and show there. We have the hood over the face here is open, so that's an open space under there, which is kind of a nice detail. So I'm going to pull back and show you with the tender as well. Get these guys hooked up. Whoops, there we go. And there she is all together. She's a very smooth runner, and I think you're going to like seeing her in motion, which brings to mind we do have the video as well. So whenever you feel ready with that, have at it.
All right. Can everyone see?
Yep.
Yeah, it looks good.
Great.
It looks, Matt Stern did this art, he did a great job on this video. He just put this together this afternoon, did a wonderful job, and it shows up so much better in his video than it does with me holding it up in front of the camera here for the iPad. I think the wheel and driver mechanisms, I think they look great. I love the I think I forget the name of that wheel style, but I think it's very eye-catching.
Absolutely.
Very smooth.
Awesome. Let's
Yeah.
that again.
Absolutely.
The face is very nice as well.
I like that it's a different
Thank you.
expression. It's a laughing face. It's a nice
Right.
little change up. The brake rigging too. I really appreciate the brake rigging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was some extra work to get that in there, but worth the effort. So I hope everybody likes it, and we can look forward to Rebecca. Keep your fingers crossed for December. That's her expected delivery date.
And you can pre-order her right now on trainworld.com. I'm sure we still have some spots for pre-order available.
Right.
So when the stream is over, head over to trainworld.com.
That's right. When it is over, not
It's
now.
over. Head over to trainworld.com. You can pre-order Rebecca.
Let me just really quickly.
I do want to, if it's still up, the date is, I believe that's not correct. The estimated availability on the website.
What does it say on the
It says June 30th. I don't think that's what you said.
Okay, yeah, that's not
no.
that's not correct.
Yeah, we're gonna have to modify that one. Sorry about that.
Not your fault.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Even
And
still
Doug, when is
December.
Bo? Apologies. When is Bo estimated for release?
Bo is expected. Let me see. He's coming in probably late June.
Okay, awesome.
So coming up soon.
Yeah, hoping to see that one run on my lap before I head back to Indiana in August. Good.
It'll get there.
Awesome.
You might have to do a video yourself, right, Christian?
Absolutely, that's the plan. That's the plan. And oh yeah, someone's asking about Stanley. Any update on that? I know so many models, but someone's.
That's right. We're making good progress on Stanley. Waiting for the first sample to come in. We did get a face sample in recently. So yes, good progress there.
Awesome, awesome.
And I know people are going to be asking about it. Any updates on Sir Handel as well? Because I know a lot of people want Sir Handel too.
All right, I'm gonna give the same answer for Stanley, and that is that we're waiting for our first sample, and we did get a face sample for Stanley. So yeah, good progress.
Great. And the last one I'm going to bug you about, Doug, is the HO figure packs, because I still think that's the number one thing I'm super excited about.
For sure.
We're still waiting for the paint samples. We've seen some, but not a complete complement of everything. So we're making progress, but that is just a long project.
Awesome. Yeah, just because on any layout, like those little figure packs, just the amount of detail that's going to add, it's going to be really awesome to see on any layout. So.
Well, I don't know. After what Carter showed, we're never going to beat that. That was so much fun.
Very much looking forward to seeing the figures next to the Topham's car. That'll be a treat for sure.
Absolutely.
I thought about doing that. I probably should have brought an unpainted figure for Sir Topham Hatt just to show the size comparison. Next time. We'll do it for next month.
And again, for everyone watching, everything that we just mentioned that's still in the production line is available for pre-order on Train World. So you can check out our website. You can sort by pre-order, and you can check out all of the Thomas and Friends items that we have on pre-order. I would really recommend you get your pre-orders in now if you want any of these products, because who knows the availability when they actually do come in. So if you want to make sure that you get yours, head over to trainworld.com as soon as this stream is over and check out all of the Bachmann Thomas products that we carry that are currently available for pre-order. And if you want, check out some other stuff that we do have in stock right now, because of course we can ship those out to you right away.
Absolutely.
Second page. What's on the second page?
Love it. More than one page of new products on the way. Amazing.
That's a lot.
Keeps us out of trouble. Keeps us busy,
Yeah. And Doug, not to pester any further, but someone put in the chat, any plans for the 80th anniversary next year?
You're a little far ahead on us for that one. We're still trying to catch up for the previous announcements, as you know. So no specific plans right now for next year for the 80th.
Okay. 30 Thomas products to pre-order. That's what someone stated. Wow.
I believe it's 44 actually.
Oh, it's 44.
44 items on pre-order.
Wow.
Doug, you're too good to us.
I better get busy to get all these products in.
Fantastic. All right, folks. And with that concludes our latest Thomas Tuesday for May 2024. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Carter, first and foremost, thank you so much for showcasing your customs once again. It was such a pleasure to see all the models from HO to Gauge 1 and to, again, hear the expertise as regards to DCC and customization in general. Doug Blaine, thank you so much for showcasing all the latest products as always. I think that like the chat was going crazy over Bo and Rebecca, and I think that they're going to be really cool models to see in the flesh in the coming months. So just
Happy to be here and share them with you. Thanks for having me.
And Matsy, my colleague, thank you so much for helping me out here. You know, my laptop I don't think would have been able to handle the Google Drive and other things. So just thank you for being along my side during Ken's absence and just helping out all together. And I
Of
look
course.
forward to continuing to work with you in the store whenever possible.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Any final words from anyone else?
Just thanks as always.
Yeah.
Thanks as always.
Get your pre-orders in. That's my last
Get
word.
your pre-orders in. That's right. Don't miss out. And I hope you didn't go there before the stream is over, because you should be going there after the stream's over. So just wait a minute or two until we log off, and then you go over there, and then you get your pre-order in. Just so you don't miss any single last microsecond of news that we may have for you. But
And speaking of not missing anything, we have an outro too, right?
we do, yes. That's right. Folks, before we finish up, I apologize last month for the abrupt ending. That was completely on me. I was running the stream, and I completely forgot the outro. So, all right. I have it right there. So with that, listen, keep on modeling, and happy Thomas Tuesday.